Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. It is a beautiful spring day, and I've decided to come outside and take in the sounds of the birds and just do something a little different. Earlier in the week, I took some Leicester Longwool and I mixed up some green dye, but I clearly didn't make sure the dye had all dissolved properly before applying it to the fiber. And so instead of just getting a nice evergreen fiber to spin, I ended up with a tiny bit different color, but it is turning out to be a lovely spin. I'm just now flicking open the locks, not worrying about everything, whether or not it's kind of staying in alignment. This is a very simple spin. It's a very stress-free spin. It's kind of a combination between spinning from the lock and spinning from cloud. The last video that I did, I spun up some cotton, and I'll be showing you the finished hank of that here in a few moments. But I wanted to share with you that, one of the things I was talking about when spinning the cotton is it can be really useful if you know how to spin long draw. Even though cotton is a very short staple, when it is when it's carded into a puni, it works really well with a long draw. Well, practicing your long draw, I know for some people can be frustrating, and as I said in my last video, it's really useful when you do use a carded fiber to practice the long draw. But using a long wool like this Leicester Longwool is also another way that you can practice having a longer draft, simply because the staple length of the fiber is so long. So, leaning back, I have no idea how I look on camera, not worried. This is just a relaxing way to spin. I took my glasses off so that my glasses are light sensitive, and so rather than sitting out here looking like I'm wearing sunglasses, I decided to take my glasses off, and I'm noticing, probably due a little bit to the pollen count today, the fiber is kind of blurry. But that's the lovely thing about this is it's such a relaxing spin. I don't actually have to see the detail in order for me to spin this. I tried to come out yesterday and do a video, but I was having tons of technical difficulty, and after multiple tries, I decided maybe I wasn't supposed to make a video yesterday. But I woke up this morning and I thought, well, let's give it a try again. Just keeping it simple. Just a little spinning in nature. So as you can see, using a long wool like this, it's easy to just spin a very relaxing fiber. Occasionally I'll run into sections that are second cuts. I'll pull some of those out of it. When I grabbed the fiber out of my storage bucket, it's a gray fiber and a white fiber. I didn't take any time to flick apart the locks or line up the locks. I really did just grab and shove it in some water and vinegar to get a good soak, applied the dye, heat set it, and just didn't worry about whether or not it'd be a little tangled when it came time to spin it. As you can see, as long as I just stay relaxed and let the fiber do its thing, I'm getting a really good single. I'm not sure how I'll end up applying this. I didn't weigh my fiber. I didn't try to get any, gauge how much I was actually dyeing. So I'll probably just spin everything up into a single and then either do a center pull ball and ply it on itself to get a 2-ply, or I may do a chain ply. We'll just have to see how I feel when it comes time to ply it. Who knows, I may even ply it with something else entirely. But this is a fabulous fiber for utility projects. I'm going to have to replace my phone. It's getting really old and less supported than I'd like it. And so I may, let's get a little bit of this orange here. I may be needing a new phone case, and I like to crochet covers for my phone. I'd make little crochet, I don't have my phone out here with me, so I can't show you on the camera, but I like to basically crochet a sleeve that has a handle on it for my phone. I find it keeps my phone cleaner. It makes it so the listen to you and respond to your voice functions that phones have are not as sensitive. So in short, my phone's not always listening to me, but listens to me when I take it out of the case. So yeah, I want to make another phone case for when I get my new phone, probably later this spring or summer. And I find these coarser wools crochet up really well into utility projects like a phone case. So as you see, I just added some more fiber, just continuing my my spin, taking out any of the vegetable matter, any of the shortcuts as I get them, and just letting the fiber do its thing. I could probably spin this thinner, a thinner single. I could definitely spin this a thicker single, but I'm just kind of letting it do what it wants to do. And as I said, when I get to an area that's a little felted or a little matted, which can be the nature of wool to have these things, even if it didn't come from my possibly rough handling in the dye process this time. I didn't comb this, I didn't card this, I didn't flick this open. So there's the nature of the animal. You'll have little areas that are potentially felted or clumped. So you just take them out if you run into them, and then just keep going. The animal that this wool came from lives in Colorado and lives in an area that had pine trees and tumbleweeds, both in the same area. And so every once in a while I run into some large vegetable matter that's really easy to pick out, but it didn't live on really grassy area because it lived under the pines. And so it's, other than the very large pieces of vegetable matter, it's almost entirely vegetable matter free. So it's really easy to just pick out what I run into and let it spin. So again, I don't know how I'll end up applying this. It's going to be not necessarily a pine color, but definitely a woodsy color. I find that the orange and the dark green do make a really beautiful forest, woodsy colored yarn. I've actually intentionally dyed up some to have this color effect in the past, and so I know it can be really pretty, all these different shades. So sometimes having the accident with your dyeing process isn't such a bad thing. And it's one of the reasons I like to dye my fiber before I spin it, is if I have an accident with the dyeing, it's much easier to incorporate the oops into the final project. Whereas if I have taken the time to get the final yarn, to get the final project done, something has caught, there we go. Sometimes when you're, so as I was finishing up that, so if you've gone through the whole process of getting everything put together, and then you have an accident, a mistake in your dyeing process, it can be frustrating. I find it a lot less frustrating when I'm dyeing the raw fiber itself. So what I was also going to notice is when you're when you're spinning, if you all of a sudden find that it's not taking up the same way that it had been, one of the things, especially with a long wool like this, is check to make sure that it's still moving freely through the hooks. Sometimes you'll get a long hair, a long fiber that kind of wraps around one of the hooks, and even though you can't see it, when you try to slide it through, you'll notice it's caught. And so if you start finding that it's not pulling through, not taking up, sorry, I have an airplane going over. I don't know how much the microphone's picking that up. But so when you find yourself, if it's not taking up the way you want it, yep, right overhead, directly over the top of me. If you find it's not taking up, then just pull it through, loosen it up, make sure that it's not caught somewhere. I find that a lot of this coarser wool like this, it can have that happen more frequently. Nothing to be frustrated about, you just stop and fix. So taking a moment here, I want to show you the cotton that I did. So after doing my video the other day, I kind of lost my spinning mojo. Actually, I kind of lost my mojo about everything, and had to just rest for a while. But I didn't want this to just languish and not be finished. So earlier this week, I sat down, I just pushed through and spun up everything that I had already prepped for the video that I did. I just did it all on one bobbin. Then I let it rest a day or two. Important lesson I've learned. While there are some fibers I can ply immediately after spinning the single, others I have learned let them rest a day or two, and cotton has definitely been one of those that I like to let rest a day or two at least. And so I spun it all up, let it rest a day or two, and then I made a center pull ball. And I do find cotton is not a bad fiber to do a center pull ball, as long as the cotton's not too thin. I find that if it's a very, very thin fiber, I don't like to do center pull ball, period. It can just end up being a nest of fiber when it's done. But this, the thickness of my single was perfect. So I put it into a center pull ball, I plied it upon itself, and I was really amazed at how there's only like a couple areas that are solid. Otherwise it's nice, and I know not everyone likes a barber pole look, but this will look lovely when if I knit with it. I'll probably crochet with it, and it will look lovely. The barber pole can actually look quite nice as a textured fiber, and it's soft as I expected. So one of the things I wanted to share when I made my cotton spinning video was, and I forgot to share it, when I first was doing I mentioned that my first attempt at spinning cotton had some issues. Well, one of the issues was that I had spun the single, did not let it rest, and then tried to do chain plying, which I'd never attempted before. It's one of the mistakes you make when you're trying to do a challenge. Ooh, I'm going to challenge myself to try a new fiber and a new technique. And I wish I'd been doing videos back then, because my family watched me and found me to be quite amusing in my my attempts to chain ply a very squirrely single. Let's just say 2 hands weren't enough, and I did at times actually have to put the single in my mouth to get everything adjusted. I have since become much better at chain plying, and I have since learned to let things like cotton rest a day or two. So that was my other story I wanted to share in my last video that I forgot. You learn from your mistakes. I try to laugh through my frustration, through the difficulty. I find it just keeps the joy of the process much more joyful and less frustrating. Yes, sometimes I would like to just sit down and weep. And yes, sometimes I do just sit down and weep. But when it comes to trying to learn something new, I try to keep it in perspective. I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing this for any other reason than to increase my understanding, increase my skill. If I were trying to do it as a business, if I were trying to teach others in a classroom environment, I would make sure I give myself time to actually learn. It's one of the things, it doesn't matter if it's quilting, it's the machine embroidery that I do, the digitizing, the spinning, knitting, whatever the craft is, whatever the skill is, whether it's learning a subject, like my daughter right now, she's refreshing her Spanish because she's going to need to use it, because she's going back into the Peace Corps, supposedly. We're hoping, crossing our fingers. And so she's going to need the Spanish. But if she were to try to teach Spanish in a school setting, she would need to take the time, just as she's doing now, she would need to take the time to practice more and refresh her understanding and refresh her learning. Because when you want to use a skill to sell it, to make money from it, and you don't give yourself time to understand and really practice the skill, all you're doing is setting yourself up for frustration, for disappointment, and sometimes, conflict and failure. Giving yourself the time and space to learn how to do the skill. That's so important. And so many people, they see somebody who is quite skilled and they think, oh, well, that looks really easy. Well, yeah, when you've been doing something for enough, I'm going to say just enough time to learn it, it's going to look easier. Each individual person is different in how much time it takes to become proficient and to become skilled. And that's not something that we should say, well, I'm not as fast as this person, or I didn't learn as fast, so I must have a problem. No. Each individual is different for a reason. Everybody has different lives, different challenges, different things they're trying to accomplish. I find that when I give myself time to learn something, when I set realistic goals based upon my own situation, then yes, I have the ability and space to laugh rather than cry when it's sometimes difficult. much like yesterday, I spent over 2 hours recording, trying to record videos for today. And each time I ran a test, the test of my technology was fine. And each time I went back and reviewed the finished video, the finished video was messed up. So, instead of being frustrated or letting it get me down, I moved on to something else. Thought, well, maybe it's just not supposed to be. And if I get this video done and there's something wrong with it, then I guess it's just not meant to be. But I will have the enjoyment and the satisfaction of knowing I tried. I know there might be people who wonder if it's too much positivity that I have, or as some will call it, toxic positivity. But just like everyone else, I have my struggles, I have my bad days, I have many reasons to cry, and there are a lot of tears that get shed. But I try to be very patient with myself when it comes to the things that I am trying to do, because impatience with yourself is a sure way of becoming more frustrated, less successful, and having a lot more reason to be angry with yourself, to cry, to feel down. So, we practice. Life itself is practice at this. And sometimes we really mess up. Sometimes things are out of our control. But we can control some things. And when I sit down to do something like spinning like this today, I really do try to control my attitude. And when everything goes horrendously wrong, if I can find a way to laugh and find joy in it, I will. Because as much as I might be tempted to just break down and cry or kick, something, I have discovered I'd rather just move forward. And I can honestly say this is something that is a skill I've learned. It's a skill that I clearly needed to learn, and it benefits me. So that is my spinning video today. I hope it's not too long. I hope that you have enjoyed another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric, and I hope that you will have time in your upcoming days and weeks to do a little more unwinding. Until I see you again, I wish you the best, and I hope that you can find some joy with some fiber or some fabric, or with the sound of birds and spring, and in the background I have, vehicles. But I hope that you will find some time and some joy and outside. And there's an airplane, so I'm going to say goodbye. We'll see you soon.